So my presentation, okay, we're gonna turn. So I'll just kind of go through the project and then I'll take any questions. So challenges, COVID. Obviously, that's kind of in general for this internship. It was definitely hard. Typically, a lot of the times I would bring all my questions to the plant clinics themselves. But again, I would typically as an intern going into the office, Adria's told me in the past they presented on something or kind of kept a running record and worked a lot within the lab. So personally, I have never grown anything on my own. Obviously, my dad did help me with this. He also presented other challenges. So I know he's on this line too, but basically he was kind of resistant in the very beginning to mess up his perfect lawn. He was kind of one of those people that really enjoyed his grass and was a little hesitant at first because it just happened to be in the perfect area of the lawn where I wanted to put this. So finally kind of was like, I gotta do something, Dad. This is my internship. I gotta get something kind of in the ground. So it worked out pretty well. And then positives. Obviously, again, spending a lot of my time at home, it gave me something to do. It kind of forced me to get up because, you know, I learned watering in the morning was one of the most important things for a vegetable garden. But again, just kind of that mental health aspect of going out there, being responsible for something, especially at my age, which was very nice. Another positive is gave my family fresh vegetables. Also, some of my neighbors got some of our cucumber plants, some of our tomato plants, and really just having that homegrown availability was super nice. It's going to turn. So when I first started the project, I probably started this before I started the internship. So like that May 1st weekend, I was like, all right, I got to start it because we got to get stuff in the ground here soon. So my dad, under the supervision of my dad, obviously, since I really am not a construction person, he helped me kind of create this bed. So it ended up being about 4 feet by 8 feet. We made everything obviously from scratch. I used my first ever, no, not a table saw. What is the saw called? You can see it obviously, but I used that for the first time. So really just kind of getting me out there, allowed me to use some heavy equipment. What I planted. So I ended up doing some tomatoes, squash, cucumbers. I put in some catnip at the very end. Oh, we switched. I don't know what happened. Okay, well, I planted so catnip and then said cucumbers. I did Trinidad scorpion pepper that we got from one of the local nurseries. What else? That's pretty much everything I planted. Here is the first kind of week, 2 weeks of what the thing looked like filled up. I got all my mulch from the Merrifield Nursery, basically bulk. We bought it in, and then I was supposed to do a soil test. I never did. That's still sitting in my room. But basically, the soil test would have kind of allowed me to know if the soil I got had the right pH, the right nutrients, if I need to add any fertilizer, any compost before I put anything in the ground. This picture on the right was basically the start of everything I planted. So in the middle, you can kind of see the 2 tomato plants. The pot idea was kind of a conversation between my dad and I to add some level of, like, I'm forgetting the word I want to say, but some level of kind of depth to the garden itself. He thought it would be the best idea to kind of cut off a crate, and then we put the pot on the crate to raise it out of the ground. So the tomato plants still had all the root structure to grow down, and actually probably more than the other tomato plants did. Most of my plants I started either by seed or transplanted from one of the local nurseries. I was a little worried starting the very beginning that starting everything by seed, I was not going to have any luck because I thought I was starting too late. But I decided to try to do a couple squash plants and then a couple of the tomato plants and maybe a couple pepper plants by transplant. And then I did the same thing with some of the squash and cucumber plants I did by seed, just to see kind of what that difference would look like and if they would grow the same. I really don't know why this isn't switching. Hold on, we're gonna go back here.
There's always a delay, though.
Can you guys see this picture? Okay. So what I ended up doing is, because I started a bunch actually by seed, and I ran out of space, I decided to put the kind of extras in a pot. I wasn't expecting anything out of them. I just was like, I don't want to throw the seeds away completely and be completely out of luck. So I decided to put them in the pots and let them grow. So this is kind of one of those pots where I dumped everything in. I'm pretty sure this contains some squash plants and actually a cucumber plant too. Again, when I first started this, didn't realize how bad squash and cucumber plants just flying off and just kind of grow crazy. So learned my lesson there, but I'll talk about that towards the end. So my first set of challenges. Nothing can ever go smooth, right? You always run into some sort of problem. My first one. So this was when we first started growing. My dad was putting down some type of herbicide on our grass, and it just happened to be windy, so it carried over to some of our plants. The nice thing is they were still so young, there was no fruit on them. So I presented this to the plant clinic, and some of the master gardeners helped me kind of tell me what to do and I guess diagnose it technically. Again, this plant ended up growing perfectly fine. There was no kind of residual effects, no lasting effects. It grew completely normal. It's just I was a little worried because I was like, this is brand new, and what is the problem? The next set of problems or challenges I faced, this is actually on the Trinidad scorpion pepper plant. Obviously, some type of bug ate it. So again, I brought it to our virtual plant clinic, and I don't remember exactly what they told me ate this, but same type thing. If I just let it grow out, it was fine. So basically, they only ate the top and nothing on the bottom, and it's still growing, and it produced peppers. So kind of lucked out with no lasting problems so far. So this picture is one of my jalapeno plants that we grew in the very beginning. So this basically became a problem for me because I noticed they weren't growing as quickly. My brother actually started a garden in his apartment and put these in pots at his apartment, and they, at this time, I think they're about a foot and a half. And mine were about 2 inches. So I knew something was going on. Again, I brought it to the plant clinic, and I brought it to Adrian, and I was like, what's up? Basically, I believe it was some type of watering problem. I learned that peppers need some type of, not as much water as other plants, and they can go longer without being watered. So I kind of eased back on the watering around these plants to see what would happen. Last update I got on these is that they're about 2 feet tall, but still haven't produced anything, but they are growing. And then I'll mention later another issue that has presented with these plants. Right, my first things I harvested. So you can see from this picture is one of my cucumbers. These are actually super quick. I put them in a trellis because I learned this throughout the internship that if you want something to grow up, just put a tomato trellis around it and it'll more than likely grow straight up. So luckily this one did. But they produced cucumbers probably within 50 or 60 days. They were super quick, and they produced about about a foot cucumber each time. The sticker only said about 8 to 10 inches. I was like, oh, this is pretty good, I feel like. The first tomato I got, I believe this one was from our garden. We had another one in a container, but they did pretty well. And actually, this one did turn red on the vine. I don't mention this, so I'll mention it now. But I did have issues kind of towards the end of July. Nothing really was turning colors. Everything still kind of stayed green. So again, kind of went to Adrian and was like, help. But what I ended up doing was just picking them and putting them in the windowsill, and they turn colors pretty quickly. My dad told me recently they have started turning on the vine again, so I don't know if that was a watering problem, or they were lacking some type of nutrient. And then this picture is just kind of what everything has been looking like. My squash plants did pretty well. I do show a problem I developed with them. My cucumbers obviously look pretty good, and then this is the tomatoes that were still green when I picked them. That's a little catnip leaf. My cat really enjoyed that. So that was kind of something cool and fun to grow. And then some later challenges I had. So I'm learning every master gardener has a problem with overcrowding. Basically, I thought, I listened and followed the directions on the stickers of the plants about how far you should space everything out, but I didn't think it was going to do this well. So a lot of the issues I ended up having kind of now in this past month have been with overcrowding. One thing is that I did end up adding compost. I believe at the end of June, early July, I think I added about 2 bags in from here. And that really kind of when I saw the change of the tomato plants at least take off and start growing. So that was kind of awesome to see. And then this brings me back to my jalapeno plants. They're kind of to the left of this image, and that I think has kind of interrupted them from getting sun. So hopefully if I end up going home eventually and pulling the tomato plants and letting the jalapeno plants kind of grow some more, hopefully they'll get that sun to kind of flourish and take off. But you can also see the other edit I made to the garden. So when I first started it, I had kind of deer and bird netting or pond netting over the garden, and then everything grew kind of wildly, and I was like, this is not going to work. So we ended up making a chicken wire fence just around the whole garden. And I didn't have any problems in this one with chipmunks or squirrels or anything coming down that I could tell. In some of my container plants, I did have chipmunks and squirrels climbing up the trellis and eating my tomato plants. So kind of lucked out, I feel like, on that one. The next issue I ran into was with the tomato plant in the pot. And this was blossom and rot. Again, I took it to our virtual plant clinics, and I was told it was a lack of calcium. So what I did is applied a powdered fertilizer that had calcium, and it was basically just plant food. And now they don't look like this. And Adrian was telling me how it's because the pH doesn't make it available for the plant, doesn't make the nutrients available for the plant to eat up. Another challenge was bacterial wilt of a cucumber plant. And basically this is caused by the spotted cucumber beetle, and it looks, to me when I first saw this, I thought this was a watering problem, but kind of glad to know this was a beetle problem and a bug problem, and once it starts, there's really no way of stopping it. So I ended up removing it. This next picture is of my squash plants. So I ended up going away for about a couple of days, and then I came back to this. And kind of disappointing to come back to this. I was like, Dad, what did you do? But turns out I took it again to the virtual plant clinic, and we think it was the squash vine borer. So basically what I did is remove the dead part. So in this left picture, I kept all that green and then removed just that plant because, again, this was the pot where I kind of threw everything in. So it was a mix of squash plants and a cucumber plant, and just removed the squash plant on the left. And then on the right, this was another bed we ended up creating that was shorter, but basically we really needed space. So we made this probably late May or so. Again, this was kind of bitten by the squash vine borer, so I just ended up removing everything. I probably got 5 or 6 squash fruits from it, nothing too exciting. Right, so what's next? Obviously, I'm not local anymore to the area, so it's a little hard. But again, how I talked about how I had parent challenges in the beginning, my dad wants to turn in this kind of area, it's in our backyard, into a garden. So basically the idea is for it is on a little bit of a slope, but the whole idea is for us to kind of grow the bigger vine species so they don't take over the garden like they did. We're gonna take, if Kathy's on this call, I'm gonna do the no dig method. Well, my dad actually started this. Basically, we tried removing all of this kind of weed overgrown area, and then we put down cardboard, a newspaper, and then something heavy on top of it, and it's basically just been sitting there to hopefully remove everything. It is south facing, so the garden, if you kind of behind me, where if you see my feet right here, my garden currently is about 3 or 4 feet behind me. So this area will primarily get morning sun compared to afternoon sun, but it will get pretty much the same amount of sunlight the garden gets. Any questions? I saw some come in the chat. Suzanne, they were taking soil tests at Virginia Tech. You can still do one. Did I have any problems with birds coming in to sample and nip fresh seedlings? Grackles, no, I didn't have any birds. I did on occasion. We have a local neighborhood Cooper's hawk that likes to hang out in our backyard. But we didn't have, I didn't see anything attack the big vegetable garden. Like I said, we did have squirrels and chipmunks go after our tomato plant and the cucumber. The kind of compost, I just got it from a store. I'm pretty sure it was cow manure. We got it from one of the local nurseries in Alexandria. I believe that there's going to be enough sunlight on that hillside to grow. Like I said, it is south facing and it gets primarily morning sun. I will be curious because that was one of my concerns, but I think it will do fine. And we do want to try, actually, I should have mentioned this. We're going to try terracing this off. We have a bunch of extra wood that we're going to put and hopefully kind of make some levels to keep in that soil and help with the drainage. Any more questions? You can either unmute yourself or just type it.
Hey, Tori, this is Susan. Do you think now that you are a gardener for life?
Honestly, I would definitely be interested in doing it again. I need to learn how to do some apartment gardening. I think I need to take a look at how the sun comes down. We have a porch, but to see how it comes for us. We are on the first floor too, so I'm a little concerned with especially because they'll mow and they'll do all the garden stuff. So I'm just kind of curious to see how everything will go if I do create something here. If I get a house eventually, a townhouse, for sure, I'd be definitely interested in doing it. It was kind of nice to start something on my own.
You did a great job.
Thank you. Kim, when I left, they were still okay. I believe my dad is still pulling things off every day. He told me that there was like 4 or 5 still on there. So
Mine look the same. So I had the same problem on the side of my house with my cucumbers. That's what I was asking.
Dad, I just saw you unmuted yourself. How they doing?
Yes. So currently we're still picking off 2, 3, 4 tomatoes a week, and I just picked off 2 cucumbers. So been eating at least 1 cucumber a week because they're, like Tori said earlier in our presentation, they're about a foot long. I actually gave some to my neighbors, so they're still producing. I went out there this morning to water, but because of the rain, I didn't have to water. Probably got about 15, 20 tomatoes going, wow. And 1 new squash is up. It's about 5 inches in length. And we have 4 bell peppers, and what was the other one? Oh, the Trinidad scorpions. Honestly, my son and I kind of had a bet that we're going to try them together, and we haven't quite did that. So I'll let you know how they taste later.
They're red, so they're at the hottest temperature they'll ever get.
Yeah, they do need to be picked. I have not picked them yet.
Sounds like you're keeping it down there. Hi, Angie.
Hey, Tori.
How are you?
So good. So first, I just want to say thank you. I see a different side, and I've seen you total asset, a total like rock champion. So first, thank you. Secondly, so I work with homeowners, and a lot of them are either new homeowners, or even if they're repeat homeowners, they're newly going into a bigger space. So they're rarely gardeners. With quarantine, I find that a lot of people are curious but super scared. Yeah, I think fear is a good word. What advice would you give a novice? I.e., what would you have told your younger self 6 months ago?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I mean, I kind of lucked out having Adria obviously right there, kind of at the text, being like, okay, what's this problem? But just being able to like go out there and see kind of how everything's growing, because I mean, that's kind of one thing, that's the only way you learn. But I would just say like asking for help when needed, because that's kind of one of the biggest things. Like, it's okay. Like, I mean, still talking to Adria, like she literally has told me that she's still super new to gardening herself in the last like 5 years. So it's like no one's perfect. You always can make a mistake. Like, just having the people there to kind of be able to ask questions is one thing that I would definitely suggest to somebody coming into this. I don't know what else I would say, but just kind of that in general, and just trying what they want. I mean, kind of if this space works out, I really want to try like watermelon or something, kind of, or cantaloupe or something, but I feel like it's a lot of easy, it's super like fun to get started. It takes work, but it was cool.
Nice, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Tori got a random package of seeds from me in the mail. And those of you who are gardeners, you know that and have heard the seed packet story. So everybody thought it was funny that I was randomly sending packets of seeds to people in the mail. But you know, you did a great job, and you definitely utilized all of your resources too. So now there was one person from the public who had one question about lilacs, and I know that we had some folks who researched it on the line with us. Is that person joining us, Tori, tonight?
Wait, I want to say thank you.
Oh, yes. Go ahead.
I apologize real quick if you don't mind me jumping in.
Go
This
for
question
it.
is more for Adria or someone else that might know, but what vegetables are easy to grow from actual seeds? Like one of my neighbors said you can take, what was it? I think he said it was garlic, and basically just break it up into pieces and then put it in the ground and it will grow. And I saw that actually, I went on the other night to the VCE website that was posted, and I saw they also use garlic. Is there anything else other than garlic you can take, like go to the store, buy a tomato, cut it up, put it in the ground? Is there any other ones?
Susan, you're shaking your head.
Cut it up.
So one of my neighbors swears by literally just buying things and putting it in the ground, and it grows. So I think that's what my dad's asking more towards.
Correct.
One thing we did at my house this summer, which I was very surprised at, is we took oh goodness, what was it? Let me think about it. I'll come back when I remember what it was.
Steve, I always start my own sweet potato slips. For the last few years, when I grew up in New Jersey, and I never grew sweet potatoes as a kid, but when you get a sweet potato that starts to sprout on the counter, or you can sprout it yourself, then you can grow the slips starting inside in March. But they don't want to go out in the soil until the soil actually reaches about 75, 80 degrees. And that usually is about late May, early June. And sweet potatoes have a very long season, just like watermelons, over 100+ days. So they have to get in the soil, and you got to get them started inside early and then take them outside. So sweet potatoes would be good. Some people do green onions. I don't know. I've never done them outside. I've just kind of grown them in water inside. I know Sylvia Sloan, and I don't know if she's on the call. She does a lot of this. Sylvia?
Hey, Steve, this is Raphael. Hey, about growing, starting from like the store stuff, I've grown, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Yes,
no,
thank you.
Yeah, I've grown potatoes from Trader Joe's. Those little yellow potatoes are organic, and they tend to bud really quick. So instead of throwing them away, I've been putting them on the ground like in the around February, March, and I get a turnaround of potatoes in about 60 days. And that's how quickly they grow. So potato and garlic, like you said, garlic is amazing. It's such a low maintenance vegetable or ground vegetable that you can just put, you know, each clove, I cut them all up from one garlic and put them in the ground in an area with, you know, good fertilizer, like you're doing composting and everything. Do it like around October, and by June, every one of them, I mean, like this year I had like 36 garlic.
Wow.
And all I did was just water them, you know, feed it a little bit, but nothing else over the winter. It's amazing.
My daughter-in-law is gardening for the first time, and she sent me a picture of the little boys cutting up cherry tomatoes from the store and planting them. I didn't think they would do anything, but they have a huge yield of cherry tomatoes in their backyard, in their big pots. So it worked.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate that.
Sylvia also said root basil, grow lettuce from roots and celery from roots, cantaloupe and squash from seeds from our vegetables. Kathleen's grown seedless watermelon that has sprouted. Turban squash that she got from the supermarket.